So, today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most important aspects, I think, of living a life at all, and especially a good life, and especially something that a lot of kids, students are missing out on. That they really, for most people, they have to wait until late adulthood, until they have kids, until they have a family, for something to really change them so that they understand this lesson that will help you incredibly early if you can internalize it correctly. This is going to help you with college, going to help you with careers, going to help you with a sense of personal meaning, responsibility. This will tell you what to do every day of your life. This will make you rich and successful. This is the one key that so many students are missing, so many high school students, middle school students are missing, and that their parents generally just don't teach them, which is the concept of responsibility. So when we think of responsibility for students, especially for middle or high school students, typically we think of chores and homework. That's it. Chores and homework. You got to clean the bathroom, you got to pick up your toys, and you got to, get a good grade on your math test. And this applies when you're 6 years old, when you're 5 years old, but it still applies to most people when they're 15 years old. There's plenty of people where when you're 4 years old, your only job is to get good grades on your coloring quiz and to pick up your toys. And then when you're 15, your only job is to get good grades on your English test and pick up your toys. In other words, as you have matured as a person, emotionally and perhaps spiritually, I hope certainly physically, your relationship to responsibility hasn't changed at all. You are an infant. You are an emotionally stunted infant without any kind of responsibility. And when I think of responsibility, I like to really think of how serious it is in this way, which is if you were to disappear, if you were to stop doing this thing that you're supposed to do, how would the world actually be any different, if at all? So if you were to stop picking up your toys, would anyone care? Or would your room just be cluttered? Would anyone outside your house ever even find out if you never picked up a toy in your entire life? Probably not. What if you're even in college and you stop doing your homework and you stop getting good grades? Who does that affect? You a bit, but not even you much, just a little bit. Something that entails real responsibility that you should be as much as possible putting on your own shoulders and taking on voluntarily will affect other people if you stop doing it. So the kind of children, the kind of students who don't have this kind of issue are people who have more responsibility placed on them usually as kids, right? This can be voluntary or involuntary. So I think of people who grow up on farms. If you don't go out every morning and feed the horse, your horse is going to die. You are going to have a dead animal. You're going to have a dead creature in your barn. That is not something you want. And that is a very tangible, very real impact of you shirking your responsibility. In other words, that's a much bigger responsibility than, did you get a 60 or a 70 or an 80 on your arithmetic quiz? That just doesn't matter that much. Or likewise, and this is really horrible, but for some people, some lower class people who tend to have a lot of issues more than middle class or higher class people, some of them don't have this issue of a lack of responsibility because that responsibility is forced on them as kids so much. If you only have one parent, or a parent is abusive, a parent is addicted to drugs, especially if you have other siblings that you need to take care of, if you're 7 years old and taking care of your 4-year-old brother, that is a real responsibility. You don't go figure out a way to make money. You don't figure out a way to get food. You don't wake up in the morning and cook for that sibling. That responsibility is real. Your sibling might get sick. They might die because you have real, actual responsibility placed on your shoulders. So what I'm recommending is not for you to go have a kid so you learn real responsibility or to have an abusive parent. I'm not recommending that as a prescription. But when I'm talking to high school, middle school students, what I want them to understand is that the responsibility that you put on yourself will impact everything about who you are fundamentally as a person and how you interact with the world, how weighty your presence is in this world. You stop doing the thing and then it actually matters for people, that has an actual impact. So again, think of many college students where they're 21. They're not 5 years old anymore. They're not 12 years old anymore. They're not 15. They're 21. And still, the only responsibility that they have is to go to class and get good grades. Again, it doesn't matter any more than when they were 5. And then all of a sudden, they go out into the workforce and they have these extra responsibilities. Maybe some things that actually matter, like now it'll start to impact your family or yourself in much bigger ways if you don't take on this responsibility, but they're just not used to it. They just have no idea what they're doing. If you think instead about the biggest responsibility that you can tackle by yourself, right? That might be something related to a career that's global in nature, something like solving climate change. You think, okay, I want to go be a part of solving climate change. That responsibility now is so huge, because if you don't make progress in that direction, then it's not going to be solved. The world, if we don't solve climate change, will be much worse than if we do. That's a real responsibility, a real thing that matters, a real thing that you can put your devotion and energy and life force to, that will make your career very obvious, make your college major very obvious, make what you should do every day very obvious, even make things like your homework have much more import. Because now you're not just doing arithmetic, you're doing arithmetic so you can become an engineer, so that you can solve climate change. Now things actually matter. And what could this look like? This could be, after you've done a lot of research and you decide you want to solve climate change, pretend you find nuclear energy is the way to do it. And there could be many careers in nuclear energy. Maybe it's nuclear energy policy, nuclear energy communications, selling nuclear plants to cities, being a salesman for a nuclear power company, could be a construction manager for nuclear power plants. All of these people are vital parts, vital pieces to the equation of greening our energy grid, greening our energy system. So a career in this way can have a huge amount of responsibility fall onto it that gives your life more meaning, more weight. It gives, again, your school, your homework, more meaning, more weight. And it is much more likely, because you're actually in the real world solving a real problem that actually matters a lot, to make you a lot more money. Jobs like being an expert in policy, communications, sales, engineering. These are all extraordinarily valuable skills that you can apply to many industries, many companies, including these ones that you might be targeting by taking on this responsibility of, hey, I want to solve climate change. Now, look, it doesn't have to be something so grand. You don't have to be Superman. You don't have to put the burdens of the world on your shoulders. But you should be putting on your shoulders some kind of goal that seems somewhat beyond your reach and something that is important, right? Again, to just, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but these dour examples, but imagine that you've had some history of abuse and you want to do something in your life, in your career, to actually stop that, right? So let's say your goal is, stopping child abuse in Kentucky, right? Stopping domestic abuse in California, stopping elder abuse in Florida. If you have some experience with these kind of things, and that's a goal of yours, and that's where you live, this is a goal that seems nearly impossible, nearly beyond your reach, but it is such a big responsibility that would impact so many people if you were to not do the work, right? Maybe over your career, you could help 100 victims, 1,000 victims, 10,000 victims. If you don't do that thing, suddenly the world is a much different place and a much worse place. That is the kind of responsibility that students, even as a goal, even something off to the future, should put on their own shoulders in order to make so many more things in their life fall into place. It's a simple concept. It's in religion all over the place. This is a concept popularized by Jordan Peterson, which, whatever you think of him, his early college lectures before the money and fame went to his head were actually really good, and he talk about a lot of things like this. So that's just a thought I want to leave you with today. The thing I want to talk about, responsibility as a way to think about your career, to think about your college, to think about your life, is probably the biggest hack, the biggest cheat to making your life good in a much better way than someone, again, who their biggest responsibility in life is not failing math class. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Drop me a follow if that's helpful, and I will see you next time. Adios.